Hey guys, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Destin DeMarion here, back with some Bass Fishing 101 tutorial about how to get into bass fishing. Today we're going to go over one of probably the most important finesse techniques that you're going to need to learn as a bass fisherman, and that is the drop shot. This is an Abu Garcia Premier size 30 reel. I've got braided line on here to a fluorocarbon leader. We'll get into why I do that later on. I've got it on a 610 medium light Fantasista Premier rod. I want the most sensitive rod I can for this application. And a medium light is kind of a wimpier rod. And for this presentation, more times than not, I want that kind of limberness because you're fighting fish on such a light line. Let's get started. Here are the components to your drop shot. And here's the bait we're going to use for this video's purposes. So we're going to start off. We've got an owner cover shot hook right here. This is a straight shank hook. I like to use a straight shank more times than not. Now, I've learned over the years that you get a much better hookup and land ratio with a straight shank. So let's start getting our rig prepared here. So we've got our line. This is a fluorocarbon line. With a drop shot, I'm going to use anywhere from 6 to 8 pound. This is Gamma Edge fluorocarbon. I'm going to tie the Palomar knot. So if you haven't seen the other videos, I'm going to show you how to tie that Palomar knot. So you're going to come through the back of the hook eye. You're going to put it back through so you've got a loop. Pull the tag end. And with this, you want to pull at least a foot to 18 inches of a tag end here. That's what I would say for almost every application. There are certain times when I'm going to want a longer tag or a shorter tag, but this will get things done most of the time. So I've got that long tag in. I'm going to do my overhand knot. So I'm going to take this loop from the front, tie an overhand knot, and then put that loop over the back of the hook. And then I'm going to cinch it with a little bit of saliva on it to help lubricate the knot. And there we go. You just pull it tight. So now if you noticed, I left that longer tag end of line. What I'm going to do with this is going to create the dropper for your weight. So I'm going to take this tag end, I'm going to put it down through the eye of the hook. There you go. I'm just going to pull it tight. There we go. So now your hook's going to sit perpendicular to the line, and that's how you want to rig this bait with this drop shot. So here's your tag end. Now with your tag end, you're going to want to attach this weight. This one's like a 1/4 ounce weight. Most of the time I'm going to use a 3/16 or a 1/4 ounce weight. If it's really windy, if you're fishing really deep water, I'm going to go to a bigger weight. Say a 3/8 or a half. I've even went up to an ounce depending on the current and the depth of the water sometimes too. So for this video, we're going to use a 1/4 ounce. This is pretty much your universal one. So I'm going to take that tag end, put it through this little crimped, it's like a crimped part of a swivel. So that's where your line is going to ultimately rest. So I took a little bit, I got like an inch, inch and a half, maybe 2 inches outside of, on the other side of the weight. I'm just going to kind of pull it into that groove. And right now it's attached. There's another thing that I like to do. Not everyone will do this. I just like it because it saves you some weight. I will do an overhand knot, 1, and I'll do 2 overhand knots. And the thing about the drop shot weights, you will lose some of these just by casting. And also if you're fishing like a rough bottom, it's going to wear out the line right at the knot just from being on the bottom so much. So this will help you save a few more weights and save you some money in the long run. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to add our bait. So as you can see, this is how the drop shot is going to sit. So let's get our bait situated on there to give you the full grasp of it. So this is the Berkley flat nose minnow. This is a natural shad color, pretty good color all across the country. Just going to mimic pretty much any bait fish in whatever fishery that you're fishing around the country. So there's a couple of different ways you can rig this. You can the way that I've found that I've liked to do lately is just rigging it straight on the shaft of the hook. So I'm going to line it up here to see where the hook point should come out. And I kind of use my finger as a reference to keep that point of where I'm going to bring that hook point out. So I'm going to put the point of the hook through the top of the bait, the flat part of the bait. And then I'm going to run it straight down the body of the bait. And I want to make sure that you get it as straight as you can. And you're going to bring it out where you had your finger there. And just thread it up to the hook, the eye of the hook. And there you go. It's pretty straight. Right like that. And the reason I started doing this is because I feel like I get a lot more hookups and lands rigging it this way. Because you can also nose hook it, which I'll show you how to do that. And that's going to be a little bit more natural action. But with this rig, I'm going to have less of the, or I'm going to have more of the hook point exposed in the bait. So if the fish only decides to eat that much of the bait, it's got a lot more, like a lot higher percentage of getting hooked than it would if I had it nose hooked and it only ate a little bit of the bait. I'm not going to hook up with that fish. So I found this has been really helpful in getting more bites, or more fish hooked and more fish landed ultimately. So the other way that I could hook it, and for this I would also use an owner mosquito hook. And this is an owner mosquito hook. This is what I use when I would be nose hooking a bait on a drop shot. So all you really need to do is find the bottom of the bait, put your hook up through the top, bring it through like so. And that's going to allow the bait the full action that it would have. A little bit more natural action, but like I said, you're not going to get quite as many hookups, especially when you're using a bigger bait. Guys, now that we know about the drop shot rig, let's talk a little bit about more where we want to fish this. So you can catch all three species of bass on this. It's indiscriminate. You can catch all kinds of fish on a drop shot, not just bass. But where I generally fish this is in deeper water. I like to fish this around targets that are deeper, so like little rock piles. A brush pile would be a good place to throw a drop shot because it's going to keep it slightly above the brush pile, generally having that that dropper with the weight. You might lose some weights, but you're not going to lose a hook as much. I'd also kind of drag this along big flats to cover water. It's a very subtle, very natural presentation. It's a great way to catch big smallmouths, but also big largemouth and spotted bass. And it's something that I use everywhere across the country. Although I like to really use it deep, you can catch them shallow on it. You can catch them almost everywhere in between. Even if they're suspended, you can see them on your graph and drop to them. That's a little bit more advanced stuff. But there's really nowhere that you can't fish a drop shot. It's not really a surface presentation. Great bait for pond fishing too, especially if they're on beds. You can catch them off the beds really easily with this because you keep the bait in that bed and really make them mad. But that's really kind of what I would do with the drop shot. And that's how, you know, I've caught a lot of fish on the drop shot and had a lot of really good tournaments drop shotting for either smallmouths or spots or largemouth, whatever it may be. So guys, thanks again for watching. Hope you got some good information out of this. And if you have any more questions, feel free to comment below or get a hold of me on social media. Stay tuned. We'll have more coming soon.